I never thought my own uncle would steal from me, but I guess greed can make people do terrible things. My name is Sophie Chen, and at 24, I thought I had everything figured out. After graduating with my computer science degree and working 2 years at a major tech company, I developed something revolutionary, a breakthrough AI algorithm that could predict consumer behavior with unprecedented accuracy. The idea came to me while working on digital marketing campaigns. I noticed patterns that nobody else seemed to see, connections between user behavior and purchasing decisions that went deeper than traditional analytics. After months of late nights and countless energy drinks, I created a prototype that worked better than I ever imagined. But I needed funding to turn it into a real business. $30,000, enough for proper servers, legal fees, and 3 months of focused development. My savings wouldn't cover it, and banks weren't exactly lining up to loan money to a young entrepreneur with no business track record. That's when I thought of Uncle Frank. Frank wasn't really my uncle. He was my mother's best friend's husband. But he'd been Uncle Frank since I was 5. He owned 3 successful tech companies and was always bragging about his eye for opportunity at family gatherings. I'd grown up listening to his stories about successful investments and business ventures. He even paid for my laptop when I started college, telling me to make something of yourself, kid. I spent weeks perfecting my presentation, 52 pages of detailed market analysis, competition breakdowns, revenue projections, and technical specifications. I had everything: charts, graphs, prototype screenshots, even letters of interest from potential clients at my current company. The algorithm's test results were impressive enough to make any investor drool. When I called to ask for a meeting, Uncle Frank seemed excited. "Of course, Sophie. Always time for my favorite niece. Come to my office tomorrow at 2. We'll have coffee and you can tell me all about this big idea of yours." His office occupied the entire top floor of a gleaming downtown high-rise. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a stunning view of the city, and modern art pieces, probably worth more than my annual salary, decorated the walls. His executive assistant, led me to a conference room where Uncle Frank was waiting. "Sophie," he gave me his trademark bear hug. "Look at you, all grown up and professional. Want something to drink? Coffee? Water? How's your mother?" I declined the drinks and made small talk about family for a few minutes, my laptop clutched tightly under my arm. Finally, Uncle Frank leaned back in his leather chair and smiled. "So, what's this big idea you wanted to discuss?" Taking a deep breath, I opened my laptop and pulled up my presentation. "I've developed an AI algorithm that can revolutionize digital marketing." I began, clicking to my first slide. "It analyzes consumer behavior patterns across multiple platforms and predicts." "Hold on," Uncle Frank interrupted, holding up his hand. "You're telling me you've created an AI that can predict what people will buy?" I nodded eagerly. "Yes, and not just that. It can identify potential customers before they even know they're in the market for a product. The accuracy rate in testing is 89%, which is—" Sophie. He shook his head, still smiling, but differently now. "You're a smart kid, always have been. But do you know how many AI startups fail? How many people think they've created the next big thing? But this is different," I insisted, turning my laptop to show him the test results. "Look at these numbers. I already have potential clients interested. All I need is $30,000 for." That's when he laughed, not a chuckle, but a full, hearty laugh that made his whole body shake. 30,000. That's cute. He stood up, straightening his expensive suit. "Listen, kid. Go back to your coding job. Leave the business stuff to people who know what they're doing. The real world isn't like your college projects." I felt my face burning. "Uncle Frank, please just look at the data. The algorithm works. I can prove it." He walked to the window, hands clasped behind his back. "You know what your problem is, Sophie? You're naive. You think having a good idea is enough. But business is brutal. You need experience, connections, thick skin." He turned back to me. "Tell you what, email me your presentation. I'll look it over when I have time, give you some pointers. Maybe in a few years when you've learned more about how things really work." "Never mind," I said quietly, closing my laptop. "I'm sorry for wasting your time." "Hey, don't be like that." He came over and patted my shoulder. "I'm doing you a favor here. Better to hear it from me than lose your savings chasing pipe dreams, right?" Now, how about that coffee? I declined as politely as I could and left his office, fighting back tears of humiliation. In the elevator, I pulled out my phone and deleted the email I drafted with my presentation attached. Something about Uncle Frank's dismissal felt off. He hadn't even looked at my actual data before shooting me down. That night, I couldn't sleep. Uncle Frank's words kept echoing in my head. Leave the business stuff to people who know what they're doing. The more I thought about it, the angrier I got. He hadn't even given me a chance to explain the technical details, the market research, the successful test runs. I threw myself back into work, determined to prove him wrong. Every evening after my day job, I refined my algorithm, expanded my documentation, and reached out to potential clients. 2 weeks passed, then 3. I was exhausted but making progress. Then came the email that changed everything. It was from Marcus, one of our senior sales managers who'd shown interest in my prototype. Sophie, weird question. Did you authorize anyone else to present your ad prediction system? Just came from a meeting with Quantum Dynamics, and they were showing something remarkably similar. My heart stopped. Quantum Dynamics was one of Uncle Frank's companies. With shaking hands, I wrote back asking for details. Marcus's response came quickly. Yeah, your Uncle Frank gave quite a presentation. Said his team had been developing it for months. Impressive stuff, almost identical to what you showed me, actually. Is this some kind of family collaboration? I felt sick. How had he gotten my presentation? I hadn't emailed it to him. Unless. The coffee he'd offered. The few minutes I'd spent in his office after he dismissed my idea. My laptop had been right there on the conference table while I gathered my things. Had he copied my files somehow? Had someone accessed my computer while I was getting ready to leave? I opened my laptop and started digging through system logs, security settings, recent connections. There, it was, an unauthorized access attempt during the exact time I'd been in Uncle Frank's office. Someone had tried to breach my computer's security while I was distracted. But they didn't know everything. You see, I hadn't put my complete algorithm in that presentation. The version I documented was real and functional, but it was missing a crucial component, what I called the bridge code that connected all the pieces. Without it, the system would work at maybe 40% efficiency. Good enough to impress investors, but not good enough to deliver the results I promised. I learned that trick from Uncle Frank himself, ironically. At a family barbecue years ago, he bragged about how he never shared complete information with potential partners until contracts were signed. Always keep an ace up your sleeve, kid, he told me, waving his beer bottle. Business is like poker, never show your whole hand. Well, Uncle Frank had just stolen an incomplete hand, and I had proof of the theft. The system logs, the timestamps, the unauthorized access attempts, it was all documented. More importantly, I had emails from Marcus and other potential clients dated months before Uncle Frank's presentation, proving I'd developed the technology first. Now I had a choice to make. I could confront Uncle Frank directly, but he'd probably just deny everything. I could sue him, but his lawyers would bury me in paperwork and drain my savings. Or I could let him dig his own grave. The thought made me smile for the first time in weeks. Uncle Frank wanted to steal my idea. Fine. Let him try to make it work without the bridge code. Let him promise his clients impossible results with an incomplete system. I picked up my phone and called Marcus. About that presentation, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. I'd love to hear more about what Uncle Frank promised Quantum's clients. In fact, would you introduce me to some of them? I have a feeling they'll be very interested in meeting the original developer. The game was on. Uncle Frank thought he could dismiss me as a naive kid and steal my work. But he was about to learn that sometimes the naive kids bite back. The next few weeks were a carefully choreographed dance. During the day, I kept up appearances at my regular job, working on routine projects and pretending nothing was wrong. But my evenings were dedicated to what I'd started calling Operation Payback. Marcus proved to be an invaluable ally. As a senior sales manager, he had connections throughout the industry and wasn't afraid to use them. Frank's been pitching your system to everyone, he told me over coffee one morning. 3 major retailers, 2 financial institutions, even a healthcare provider. He's promising 89% accuracy in consumer prediction, the exact number from your presentation. I smiled into my latte. And how's that working out for him? Marcus leaned forward, lowering his voice. That's the interesting part. Initial tests are showing maybe 35 to 40% accuracy. His tech team is working overtime trying to figure out why the system isn't performing as promised. They can't understand why it works perfectly in small tests, but falls apart with larger datasets. Of course it did. Without the bridge code, the system couldn't properly scale. It was like trying to build a skyscraper with half the support beams missing. It might look good on paper, but it would never stand in reality. The best part? Marcus continued. He's already signed contracts with delivery guarantees. If he can't get the system working at the promised level within 60 days, he's looking at major penalties. We're talking millions in liability. I felt a mix of satisfaction and nervousness. This was exactly what I'd hoped would happen, but the stakes were higher than I'd imagined. Uncle Frank wasn't just risking his reputation. He was betting his company's future on stolen, incomplete technology. That afternoon, I received an unexpected visitor at my office. Sarah Martinez, head of technology at Retail Giant, one of the largest retail chains in the country, wanted to discuss anomalies in the AI system they were testing. Your uncle's company promised us revolutionary results, she said, sitting across from my desk. But something's off. The basic architecture looks solid, but it's like there's a piece missing. Then I started asking around, and your name kept coming up. I maintained a carefully neutral expression. Oh, several people mentioned you've been working on something similar. Very similar, in fact. She raised an eyebrow. Care to explain? This was my moment. I opened my laptop and pulled up my original development files, complete with timestamps and documentation. I'd be happy to explain everything, Ms. Martinez. But first, let me show you what a complete version of this system can actually do. For the next hour, I walked her through my algorithm, the real one, with all components intact. I demonstrated its capabilities using Retail Giant's own test data, which she'd brought along. The results were exactly as I promised, 89% accuracy, even with large datasets. Sarah sat back, clearly impressed. This is what we thought we were buying from Quantum Dynamics. Your uncle. He took this from you, didn't he? I nodded slowly. I can prove it, if necessary. But I'm more interested in looking forward than backward. Retail Giant needs this technology to work, and I can make that happen. You're proposing we work with you directly? She frowned. We already have a contract with Quantum. A contract they can't fulfill, I pointed out. You could sue them for breach, but that would take months or years. Or, I paused for effect, you could give me 72 hours to prove I can deliver what Uncle Frank promised. Sarah studied me for a long moment. You're putting me in a difficult position, Sophie, but I have to admit, I'm intrigued. Give me until tomorrow to discuss this with my team. After she left, I sat at my desk, heart pounding. The pieces were falling into place, but I knew the hard part was still to come. Uncle Frank wouldn't go down without a fight. I didn't have to wait long. That evening, as I was leaving work, a black SUV pulled up beside me in the parking lot. The window rolled down, revealing Uncle Frank's face, his usual jovial expression replaced by something harder. Get in, he said. We need to talk. I stood my ground. Anything you have to say, you can say right here. He sighed heavily. Fine. I know what you're doing, Sophie. Talking to my clients, undermining my company's reputation. It stops now. Like you stopped when I asked you to look at my business plan. I shot back. Before you stole it. Stole? He laughed, but it wasn't his usual booming laugh. This one was sharp, dangerous. You came to me with a half-baked idea and some amateur code. My team developed it into something real. If anything, you should be thanking me for proving your concept had merit. Your team developed it. I pulled out my phone and played a recording of my meeting with Sarah Martinez. Is that why your system only works at 40% capacity? Because you can't figure out what's missing. The color drained from his face as he listened to the recording. You little, he caught himself, forcing a smile. Look, we can work this out. You're obviously talented. Come work for me. We'll call it a consulting position, say $150,000 a year to start, plus bonuses. I pretended to consider it. That's generous. Almost as generous as the penalties in your contracts if you can't deliver 89% accuracy in the next 60 days. His smile vanished. You're playing a dangerous game, Sophie. I've destroyed people twice your age for less. No, I corrected him. I'm playing a smart game. You taught me that, remember? Always keep an ace up your sleeve. Well, guess what, Uncle Frank? I kept the most important card in the deck, and now your whole house of cards is about to collapse. I turned to walk away, but his next words stopped me cold. Your mother's business isn't doing so well, is it? His voice was casual, but the threat was clear. Be ashamed if her loan applications started getting denied. Banking's a small world, you know. I turned back slowly, anger burning in my chest. Did you just threaten my mother? Of course not. He smiled that shark-like smile again. Just making conversation. Think about my offer, Sophie. You have until tomorrow afternoon. As his SUV pulled away, I stood in the darkening parking lot, hands shaking with rage. Uncle Frank had just made this personal, more personal than he knew. What he didn't realize was that he'd just given me exactly what I needed, proof of attempted coercion, recorded on my phone's voice memo app. That night, I made 3 calls. The first was to my mother, warning her to move her business accounts to a new bank, one outside Uncle Frank's sphere of influence. The second was to Sarah Martinez, accepting her offer to demonstrate my assistant's capabilities the next day. The third call was to a journalist I knew from college who worked at the Wall Street Journal. Hey Olivia, I said when she answered, remember how you said you were looking for a story about corruption in the tech industry? I think I have something that might interest you. Uncle Frank had taught me another lesson at that long-ago barbecue. In business, you don't just need a good hand. You need to know exactly when to play it. Well, Uncle Frank, I thought as I reviewed the recordings on my phone. Let's see how you handle this hand. The story was devastating. Olivia had done her homework, uncovering 2 previous instances where Uncle Frank had stolen ideas from other developers. She'd found former employees willing to talk, revealing a pattern of corporate espionage and intimidation. Most damaging of all, she had the recording of his threat against my mother. We need to contact our lawyers, the executive said, already dialing her phone. Ms. Chen, please stay available. We'll be in touch very soon. I had barely returned to my office when my phone exploded with notifications. The story was spreading like wildfire through tech circles. Uncle Frank's other clients were calling emergency meetings. His company's stock was already dropping. Then came the text from my mother. Frank's wife just called me crying. What's going on? I hadn't told her everything, trying to protect her from Uncle Frank's threats. Now I had no choice. I called and explained the whole situation, my invention, his theft, the threats, everything. There was a long pause when I finished. Oh, Sophie, she said finally. I'm so sorry. I had no idea Frank could be so. I've known him for 20 years. I thought he was family. Are you angry with me? I asked, suddenly feeling like a little girl again. For exposing him? Angry? Sophie, I'm proud of you. You stood up to a bully. You protected yourself and your work. That's exactly what I raised you to do. Her words brought tears to my eyes. I hadn't realized how much I needed to hear that. The next few hours were chaos. My phone wouldn't stop ringing. Journalists, potential clients, even headhunters trying to recruit me. I turned it off and focused on responding to urgent emails, particularly from Retailgen's legal team. Around 3 p.m., Uncle Frank made his final play. His lawyer called, offering a settlement, $2 million in exchange for my silence and the complete rights to my algorithm. I declined without hesitation. You don't understand, the lawyer pressed. Mr. Chen is prepared to be very generous, $3 million, plus a consulting contract. I understand perfectly, I replied. The answer is still no. But please tell Uncle Frank I haven't forgotten his other lesson. Always know when to fold. By evening, Retailgent had terminated its contract with Quantum Dynamics, citing fraud and misrepresentation. 2 other major clients followed suit within hours. Uncle Frank's company stock had dropped 40% by market close. I was gathering my things to leave the office when my desk phone rang. It was Uncle Frank himself. You've made your point, he said, his voice rough. Name your price. It was never about money, I told him. You could have invested in me, mentored me, helped me grow. Instead, you chose to steal from me and threaten my mother. You don't get to buy your way out of this. I'll lose everything, he said quietly. No, you'll lose what you stole. There's a difference. I paused, then added, Goodbye, Uncle Frank. As I left the office that evening, I felt strangely light. The anger and fear of the past weeks had burned away, leaving something else in their place. Confidence. Uncle Frank had tried to dismiss me as a naive kid, but I'd outmaneuvered him at his own game. My phone buzzed with a text from Sarah Martinez. Board meeting tomorrow at 9 a.m. We'd like to discuss a direct partnership. Your terms. I smiled, remembering Uncle Frank's words from that first meeting. Leave the business stuff to people who know what they're doing. Well, Uncle Frank, I thought as I headed home. It turns out I know exactly what I'm doing. 6 months later, I stood in my own office, watching the sunset paint the city skyline in shades of orange and pink. The view wasn't quite as impressive as Uncle Frank's had been, but this one was mine, earned honestly. The partnership with Retailgent had exceeded everyone's expectations. My AI system had revolutionized their marketing strategy, increasing their conversion rates by 156% in the first quarter alone. They'd given me complete control over implementation, plus a generous equity stake in the project. More importantly, they'd helped me launch my own company, Predict AI Solutions. We now had 15 employees, a growing client list, and a reputation for innovation and integrity in the industry. The Wall Street Journal had recently named us one of the top 10 tech startups to watch. Uncle Frank's empire, meanwhile, had crumbled. Quantum Dynamics filed for bankruptcy 2 months after the scandal broke. 3 other companies cut ties with him, citing trust issues. Last I heard, he'd sold his mansion and moved to Florida, trying to rebuild his life away from the tech industry. His wife, my aunt by association, had divorced him after discovering he'd hidden millions in offshore accounts. The irony wasn't lost on me. He lost everything trying to steal what I would have willingly shared if he just treated me with respect. My mother knocked on my office door, bringing me back to the present. She joined my company as operations manager, bringing years of small business experience to help manage our rapid growth. "Ready for dinner?" she asked. The team's waiting downstairs. We were celebrating our latest milestone, a contract with one of the largest e-commerce platforms in Asia. The deal was worth more than 10 times the investment I'd originally asked Uncle Frank for. "Just a minute," I said, finishing an email. "Did you see today's numbers?" Mom smiled. 89% accuracy, just like you promised. You never exaggerated, did you? That's what Frank never understood. You didn't need to lie or steal because you actually had something real. As we rode the elevator down to meet my team, I thought about how much had changed in 6 months. The naive kid Uncle Frank had dismissed now ran a thriving company. The amateur code he'd stolen had transformed into an industry-leading platform. And the family dynamics he tried to exploit had shifted permanently. Most of my relatives had chosen sides after the scandal broke. Some stopped speaking to me, calling me ungrateful for destroying Uncle Frank. Others, like my mother, saw the truth and stood by me. I'd lost some family ties, but the ones that remained were stronger, built on respect rather than obligation. At dinner, surrounded by my team, people who believed in me and my vision, I raised a glass. To honest success, I said, and to lessons learned the hard way. Everyone clinked glasses, but my mother caught my eye with a knowing look. She understood that this toast wasn't just about business success. It was about standing up for yourself, about not letting anyone steal your dreams, even family. Later that night, I received an unexpected email from Uncle Frank. The subject line read simply, "I'm sorry." The message was brief. "You proved me wrong, Sophie, not just about the technology, but about everything. I lost my way trying to take shortcuts to success, while you built something real. I know it's too late for us, but I wanted you to know you were right. I'm proud of what you've accomplished, even if I have no right to be." I sat for a long time, staring at those words. Part of me wanted to delete the email without responding, but finally, I wrote back. "Thank you for the apology. You taught me 2 important lessons. Always keep an ace up your sleeve, and know when to fold. I've added a third. Success means nothing if you don't earn it honestly. I hope you find your way back to that truth." I hit send and closed my laptop. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new opportunities, new chances to prove myself. But tonight, I could rest easy knowing I'd won my success the right way, not by stealing or threatening, but by believing in myself and my work. Uncle Frank had laughed when I asked for $30,000 to start my company. Now I was running a multi-million-dollar enterprise built on the very idea he dismissed. Sometimes, the best revenge isn't about getting even. It's about proving them wrong by succeeding beyond their wildest expectations. And that's exactly what I did.